we've heard excellent contributions about the global scene in the next 5 years on business and human rights. So like my colleague Abiola, I would like to focus 4 minutes on Latin America region. So the next 5 years in Latin America will see more foreign investment coming to the region, drawn by immense amount of natural resources that are still untapped, a cheap labor force, and more political stability and openness by many governments. However, the combination of an expanding economy, the existence of a multitude of vulnerable parts of population in areas where business wish to expand, and weak regulatory framework and or corruption in many of these countries ensures the continuity of many worrying trends of abuses that I have witnessed in past years in my research on business and human rights issues in Latin America. For instance, let me give you 3 examples. Many of you may have heard of conflicts between indigenous peoples and mining companies in Peru, some of which ended with violent clashes and protesters being killed by the police in 2009. The current government in Peru has granted concessions to oil, gas, and mining companies that cover 75% of the Amazon region in Peru. And at the same time, it has put many obstacles to a new law debated in Congress on free, prior, and informed consent by local communities to business projects in their lands. This, to me, is a clear sign of reports on alleged displacement and loss of livelihoods to come. Some of you may have also heard of companies that have been implicated in fueling the armed conflict in Colombia, for example, by making illegal payments to paramilitaries. Well, what has come up so far, unfortunately, is only the tip of the iceberg. Many paramilitary leaders who are now in detention have not confessed many of their crimes in the hope of bargaining with the government and get a reduction in their sentences. And many others have been extradited to the US. So in future, human rights defenders hope that most armed group leaders will start speaking openly about their business connections, and we will know about many other local and international companies implicated. Third example, in terms of the mining sector, Chile sent a strong message to the entire region after the amazing rescue of the 33 miners in the San Jose mine, when the authorities suspended all activities of the owner company, San Esteban, until it can show improvement in health and safety measures. But unfortunately, mining incidents still occur in all the region, and for example, 60 miners who died in a mine in Mexico in 2006 have never been recovered. They are still underground, despite the families obviously wanting the corpses to be recovered, but they have never been recovered due to the negligence of the mining company implicated and the local authority. So I think that many of the current trends of abuses are unfortunately going to continue in the next 5 years. And as Abiola mentioned for Africa, in Latin America there will also be more lawsuits and more protests against companies' behavior. On the more positive side, I think that in the next 5 years many NGOs will use the RAGI framework to focus on corporate accountability issues. Some NGOs in the region are already following closely the RAGI process and will make good use of the 3 pillars in the guiding principles to be delivered to the UN Human Rights Council next year, and mainly of the access to remedy pillar, as it was mentioned here. Leading companies will also increasingly close the gap between the rhetoric on corporate social responsibility and their actual actions on the ground, pushed by NGOs, by investors, and by the media. Laggard companies that still refuse to recognize their role vis-à-vis human rights will increasingly come to do so, prompted by their need to obtain a social license to operate if they want to avoid risk and cut their operational costs. Finally, some Latin America companies from strong emerging markets like Brazil and Mexico are becoming global players. They are not only becoming like regional companies, but even multinationals. We've seen that with some Brazilian and Mexican companies that buy assets in Asia, in Africa, in Europe even, and other continents. In that process, they will have a great opportunity to lead by example and to comply with international standards. We've seen that, for example, a Colombian mining company have joined the global business leaders on human rights, and increasingly some of these companies from these strong emerging markets, if they comply with international standards, they can maybe show their colleagues in China, in other parts, how things should be done properly. Thank you.